Hi everyone, welcome to MediaNama. When the Telecom Regulatory Authority of India, trai, sought responses to its consultation paper on the regulation of communication platforms, the responses were flooded with telecom companies saying one common thing. They all suggested that platforms should contribute to the Universal Services Obligation Fund. For those who may not know, this is a 5% levy on the aggregate gross revenue collected by the government from telecom operators. It is used to provide telecom services to underserved areas. We are joined by Nikhil Baba, the founder of MediaNama and a champion of net neutrality to discuss this topic. Hi, Nikhil. One of the things I wanted to understand was that telecom companies are asking that OTT platforms, just like them, should contribute to the Universal Service Obligation Fund. Do you think it's fair to ask OTT platforms to pay this levy?
So, OTT by OTT, I'm assuming you mean the internet because OTT is a telecom phrase. Um, One can think that because these, and that's what the argument is, that because these are large players and like especially video services are being used by so many players, and therefore there's a lot of data being uh, accessed by users, or rather, they perform a large amount of the traffic on the internet, that they would be required to that they should be required to contribute to telecom infrastructure development. Um, I find this entire rationale flawed. Firstly, because, for example, we don't see Samsung being asked to pay for developing electricity infrastructure, or Hindware or a Chakwa to build public toilets, right? They're all so in the same way, a restaurant is not charged to build a road that can lead people to them. So asking online platforms to pay for infrastructure just because they're popular uh, doesn't make sense. They pay taxes just like everybody else, and those taxes are deployed. Telecom operators are charged this additional fee, which gets transferred to the user simply because they have exclusive access to spectrum. And it was felt that telecom operators may not serve certain areas, and therefore you need a fund separately to ensure there's universal access. So it is a distrust in telecom operators and the market's competitiveness to force, serving of certain areas, let's say, especially hilly areas, that led to the USO Fund. Um, so uh, my, I don't see a need to do this for the internet because it would effectively be double charging. Firstly, 'cause Indian users who are using the internet are already paying for it through telecom operators. They're contributing to the USO Fund. Now, if you charge online service providers, then we'll also be charged second time by the online service providers. Right? That's one. Um, Secondly, what we also see is that India has a problem where most of the telecom infrastructure is actually mobile based and not wireline based. There isn't sufficient incentive to build wireline infrastructure using the USO fund because um, wireline actually scales better than wireless. Congestion is not a problem on wireline networks; it's more of a problem on wireless. And that congestion also only exists because people demand it. People want a service, or there might be thousands of people in an area, and telecom infrastructure is unable to deal with it. So that consumer demand is of telecom operators, not of the internet, not of an online company, because internet users are only seeking access to the internet. On the internet, the apps that they use are their freedom, right? So you can't punish a company just because users prefer using their service. Is my point. Um, in most countries, actually, telecom infrastructure is stretched um, because of high consumption on mobile. And in that, what they do is they offload it to Wi-Fi. So, for example, many Indian companies, Airtel and Jio included, have sufficient fiber infra, and they need to invest more in it. It's just that they haven't enabled switching to that infra. They haven't enabled enough hotspots. Jio, for example, invested in and experimented with hotspots, but their rollout was really poor. I tried using it and it barely worked. And so it's because they haven't been able to offload their traffic that we have a congestion problem in many places. And it's their problem to solve. I don't see why internet companies need to be forced to pay for it. Um, the other is that I strongly believe that it's competition that drives investment. Uh, it was Airtel, Idea, Vodafone used to complain about no investment in infrastructure. They don't have enough money and they need to charge online companies a network usage fee so that they can invest in infrastructure. So the same argument is now being made regarding the USO fund. But the fact is, 3 months before Jio launched, Airtel began investing heavily in telecom infrastructure under its network initiative. And competition led to an improvement in infrastructure development. So competition drives investment in infra. And if you have that as a mechanism, um, then why would you force players to contribute to a separate fund? The other thing is that if you go and check the USO Fund's website, less than 50% of the USO Fund, total USO Fund collected from people like us, mobile users, has been dispersed. So there are like around 1,49,246 crore rupees have been collected under the USO fund. Only 73,646 crore rupees have actually been spent, which means less than 50%. The balance remaining in the USO fund has increased every year since 2008, 2009. So I don't understand why you want to grow the USO fund when you don't intend to spend it. The size of the fund is only growing. So to me this doesn't make sense. The other is I think that we seem to have market concentration in telecom, in internet access right now. So for example, Airtel has wireline, it has wireless, and now it's getting into satellite. Jio is wireless and wireline, and I wouldn't be surprised if they get into satellite also. So effectively, the same players are controlling most of internet access resources, and there isn't enough competition in telecom then. So, I think either the government needs to look at a market concentration study over here and see if they want to limit entry of the same players into another mechanism for internet access, or force like a diversification where separate companies would be running separate operations and not owned by the same parent. Um, and the other is that you might want to also open up some spectrum bands for unlicensed usage, which will again lead to infrastructure development in unlicensed spectrum, and it makes it easier for new players to enter the space, and especially ISPs, which are more or less struggling, and Airtel and Jio, along with BSNL, are three dominant ISPs. Allow others to basically use this unlicensed spectrum to grow and provide alternate internet access. So, that will lead to an investment in infrastructure. I don't think the USO fund is a solution.
Thank you, Nikhil. For those who may want to know more about this topic, we have extensive coverage on TRAI's consultation and the responses it received on our website.